this was the last question that Rachel Mitchell was allowed to ask in the hearing. And I don't know that it was because she asked this. There was a break subsequent to this, right? And then when they returned from the break, she was not asking questions anymore.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if it was because she was pointing out that he had on his calendar a party with 2/3 of the people who Blasey Ford had said were present in and around a time that if you reverse engineer it from when Mark Judge was working at that Safeway, and she said that she had seen him 6 to 8 weeks after the party, which would have been at the end of August, July 1st fits right in there. But it's quite a coincidence. And here is that exchange. I'm quite convinced that at one point, Mitchell herself was convinced that he did it.
Judge, do you still have your calendars there?
I do.
I would like you to look at the July 1st entry.
Yes.
The entry says, and I quote, "Go to Timmy's for skis with Judge, Tom, PJ, Bernie, and Squee."
Squee. It's a nickname.
Okay. To what does this refer and to whom?
So first says Tobin's House workout. So that's one of the football workouts that we would have that Dr. Finizio would run for guys on the football team.
Pause it for 1 second. Now, if I was the FBI, I would go talk to Dr. Finizio. Maybe if Dr. Finizio has died. But I would talk to other people. What happened at these summer football workouts? We're in July, right? July 1st. Things are a little bit looser. We're still a couple months away, right? We're hard at off season now. This is peak off season.
When I was in high school, you couldn't even practice football in the summer like this. I
don't know if Dr. Finizio was an officially associated with. I mean, we don't know. Go ahead.
It's on the football team during the summer. So we would be there. That's usually 6 to 8 or so, kind of till near dark. And then it looks like we went over to Timmy's. You want to know their last names too? I'm happy to do it.
If you could just identify, is Judge, Mark Judge?
It is.
And is PJ Smith?
It is. So it's Tim Gaudette, Mark Judge, Tom Kane, PJ Smith, Bernie McCarthy, Chris Garrett.
Chris Garrett is Squee?
He is.
Pause it. Chris Garrett is also the guy that Ed Whelan said was the doppelganger. Chris Garrett is the guy who supposedly introduced those two, Kavanaugh and Blasey Ford. PJ was the one that she sort of went out with, right? And Mark Judge. So 4 of the guys there she had placed at this party. The other 2 weren't. Now, go meet those guys is in the future. So who knows who's there and at what time? Go ahead, continue.
McCarthy, Chris Garrett.
Chris Garrett is Squee?
He is.
Did you, in your calendar, routinely document social gatherings like house parties or gatherings of friends in your calendar?
Yes, it certainly appears that way. That's what I was doing in the summer of 1982, and you can see that reflected on several of the entries.
If a gathering like Dr. Ford has described had occurred, would you have documented that?
Yes, because I documented everything, those kinds of events, even small get-togethers. August 7th is another good example where I documented a small get-together that summer. So, yes.
August 7th. Could you read that?
I think that's go to Becky's,
Pause it.
Matt.
Like, what is he trying to what is she trying to establish here? Like, she talks about it, but I'm just going over random things in the calendar.
I better get off.
And then let her finish. She finishes, and that is the last we ever heard of her.
I think that's go to Becky's, Matt, Denise, Lori, Jenny.
Have you reviewed every entry that is in these calendars of May, June, July, and August of 1982?
I have.
Is there anything that could even remotely fit what we're talking about in terms of Dr. Ford's allegations?
No.
We just heard something that remotely fit it. 4 of the 6 guys who are going to meet on that, what was it, a Thursday, were there. Now, Dr. Blasey Ford she really must have some skills to know who he was hanging out with that summer, seeing as how she never even met the dude. Soros must have had that information. Soros must have had his calendars. I mean, that right there is stunning. And Sheldon Whitehouse brought it up in the committee meeting today before the vote. Like, I mean, this has got to be the things that are weighing on a Collins and a Murkowski if they have half a brain, because there's a lot of people out there who have a large investment in finding out what exactly happened there. And
Yeah, she walked right up to that July 1st thing and then let him filibuster a little bit, and then this was the sound she made.
exactly.
Like, why would she even go there?
Well, she still has a professional reputation.
Yeah, that's the
Somewhat
tension
protect. Do you have so and Heitkamp and Manchin are the only ones that we don't know yet, right?
I don't feel good about Heitkamp.
Okay, but Jones, Donnelly, Tester, and there's one other whose name I can't remember have gone out the right way on this.
Something's going on, ladies and gentlemen. The vote was supposed to take place at 1:30. There is a sense that Grassley would have taken the vote if he had the votes. And Jeff Flake has been hiding in the anteroom. Is that Tubin? That is not Tubin. Oh, there is Tubin. Okay. So Jeff Flake, right now, it is 1:46 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jeff Flake has already announced, as of this morning, right, that he was going to vote yes in the committee for Kavanaugh. However, something's holding up the vote. Jeff Flake is in the anteroom outside talking to people. We know that Joe Donnelly has already announced that he is voting against. We know that Doug Jones from Alabama voting against. And this is what Jeff Flake would have heard on CNN this morning from the fairly, typically reserved, there's a couple of CNN commentators, Jeffrey Toobin on there. Jeffrey Toobin is, would definitely describe himself as a liberal, but he also is like a legal guy, and they tend to be less partisan. And there's a lot of but he's got a great legal mind, and there's always that type of thing that goes on with guys like this. But Jeffrey Toobin was rather pointed today in his criticism of one Jeff Flake.
Jeff Flake, having called for the hearing, didn't even bother to use his 5 minutes. For 1 minute, he sort of said, oh, this is very sad. I mean, if there is a weaker, more pathetic political figure in the United States than Jeff Flake, I'm not aware of who it is. And I thought yesterday was a classic demonstration of his inability to stand for anything.
You are off the Flake family Christmas list once and for all.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a pretty pointed statement for, sort of someone who's been up until fairly recently been getting plaudits for being, tough enough to stand up to Donald Trump. And, the thing with these politicians is they establish a brand. And even if what is part of their brand goes against what their constituents want at any given time, they stay true to their brand because they think that's what they can go out to their voters and say, hey, I know you don't like that, but this is who I am. And there's a certain amount of respect that voters give to that. Like, I don't agree with him all the time, but he says what he believes, or she says that type of thing. And so they hew to their brand a decent amount. Jeff Flake may also feel like he has a personal brand, even if it isn't going to be as a senator in the future. And maybe he's starting to realize, like, this doesn't, my personal brand, like, maybe my slip is showing. But we shall see. But that was Jeffrey Toobin. All right, let's go into the to what we have in terms of the footage from yesterday, and then we'll take some phone calls and take your IMs. I am now warming up the IM machine as we speak, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to some of the lies, the obvious lies that Brett Kavanaugh talked about. We had mentioned this with Eddie Glaude. But here is Kavanaugh talking to Sheldon Whitehouse. This is Blumenthal? Isn't this number 3?
Yeah, this is Blumenthal.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is I'm sorry. This is Blumenthal. And Blumenthal starts off his questioning, and I don't know if we have it in this clip, but he, as a former prosecutor from Connecticut, says to Kavanaugh, I'm sure you're aware of the concept, and it's Latin, so forgive me, my Latin is very rusty, of you tell one lie, they're all lies. This is where the witness gets dismissed, or is the jury instructions can be, you don't have to listen to any of the testimony, or let's put it this way. If the witness, it's been determined that the witness lied about one thing, it impeaches all of their testimony. And so Blumenthal is saying, that's why we're asking you about these subsidiary issues. Yeah, it's silly to ask someone about what was in their yearbook. Yeah, that's silly. But, we want to see if you are lying or you're not lying. All right, we got to take no, here it is. Let's go to the video.
Ask you about Renata Dolphin, who lives in Connecticut. She thought these yearbook statements were, quote, horrible, hurtful, and simply untrue, end quote, because Renata alumni clearly implied some boast of sexual conquest. And that's the reason that you apologized to her, correct?
That's false, speaking about the yearbook, and she said she and I never had any sexual interaction. So your question is false, and I've addressed that in the opening statement. And so your question is based on a false premise and really does great harm to her. I don't know why you're bringing this up, frankly. Doing great harm to her by even bringing her name up here.
Pause it. In his opening statement, he said, we really liked her. She was a good friend. And so we were paying tribute and doing an homage to her. And that's why we did this. Now, yes, it's very weird to pay homage to a good friend from high school, and they weren't aware of how good of a friend they were of yours, that you actually memorialize them and no one else in your yearbook. That's
weird. To be a
weird.
key part of the homage is that the homagee know they were homaged?
Indeed. Like, why would you say, like, I wanted to celebrate you, but I just didn't want you to know about it? And so he gets super defensive about it. And, you know, Blumenthal, frankly, this is one of those things that they could have all harped on. They all could have said, we're doing two things. We're doing the FBI investigation and we're doing the Renate alumnus. Right. Or switch back and forth and just make him answer the question instead of blatantly lie. But continue.
Harm to her by even bringing her name up here is really unfortunate.
Well, calling someone an alumnus in that way.
Well, implying what you're implying about
by a number of your football friends at the time as boasting of sexual conduct. That's the reason that I'm bringing it up. And
yeah, no, it's false. You're implying that. Look what you're bringing up right now about her. Look what you're doing.
Chairman, I ask that these interruptions not be subtracted from my time.
Yeah.
Now, Blumenthal could have said, can you explain to me the discrepancy between what you are saying now and what your lawyer said in terms of it being just about you guys shared a kiss and so you were talking about that? I mean, they should have hammered this. Like, he can't get away with saying, how can you bring this up about her? Well, dude, just tell the truth. So, update. Jeff Flake was speaking. He wanted to delay the floor vote for a week for an investigation limited to 1 week. Flake wants to advance to the vote. Grassley calls to advance first, and the ayes have it. So that mean that the vote is actually taking place in the committee? Brendan? Brendan, does that mean that the vote's taking place in the committee?
Yeah, they just voted on the advancement in the committee.
So he was confirmed by the committee.
I believe so. It's ongoing.
What did Jeff Flake vote?
He voted to advance.
So he said, I would like to wait for this vote for a week.
For the confirmation vote, I'll vote him out of committee, but I want this.
Okay, so they vote him out of committee, but they want 1 week time for the FBI investigation to go to the full Senate floor. So, okay, so this suggests to me that that concept that I was talking about earlier is they are very worried that particularly this week, if they vote in the next day, that 3 days later, they're going to get information that is going to be problematic to Kavanaugh. And it's gonna, we'll see.
What do you think it's going to be if not lying under oath?
What do I think it's going to be? What do you mean?
Yeah, what's going to come out?
I think if someone like Squee or, I'm sorry.
No,
That's
it's
the
not
guy's
your fault.
nickname, right?
I know.
Squee and Johnny No
But if
Socks.
Squee,
Squee and Naughty Jody No Socks.
if
may come
Squee
forward.
steps forward and says they knew each other, they definitely knew each other. I introduced them. They knew each other. Then I think Judge Kavanaugh's got a real problem. If the FBI does investigate and finds out that, and sits down with Mark Judge, how long is it going to take Mark Judge to fall apart? Like, did you work at the Safeway? Well, yeah, I did. Did you remember seeing her there? No, I never saw her at the Safeway. Wait a second. So she says she saw you at the Safeway. I mean, Mark Judge could have been like, do you know, they could ask Mark Judge, do you know her? Did you know her? Yes. So you did know her. How often did you guys hang out? Well, I mean, who knows?
Can we get a Kickstarter to send Dog the Bounty Hunter to Delaware?
I mean, there's Squee, and then there's the woman who who first said, like, I don't remember that party, but I believe Ford Blasey, who Blasey Ford rather said was ill, she could decide, like, you know what? I'm gonna tell a little bit more. I mean, there's a lot of people already coming out from Yale who are saying, like, the dude partied. You know, and all at this time, ladies and gentlemen, the vote was supposed to take place at 1:30. There is a sense that Grassley would have taken the vote if he had